Hey everybody, it's Chainsaw. Today I'm continuing the Mastodon Discography with, of course, the 2006 release, the third album, entitled Blood Mountain. When I first heard this album in its entirety a few years ago, it really blew me away musically, lyrically, all those sorts of things. Being a fan of Leviathan, hearing a few tracks from Remission before I heard Blood Mountain in its entirety, I was kind of in the sense of I understood what Mastodon was. I understood kind of the concept of what the band was. And then when I heard Blood Mountain, the concept changed because some of the things on Blood Mountain are different than Remission and Leviathan. 2 years after Leviathan, 2004, Blood Mountain comes out 2 years later, and you really get to see that the band is trying to incorporate some different kind of concepts, ideas into their music. Now, this shouldn't scare fans when this was coming about in 2006, because just because the band's trying new things doesn't mean that the old concepts, the kind of already done ideas, basically what you come to know from Mastodon, isn't going to be on there. It's still present throughout this whole entire album. You get to see where the old ideas, kind of the understanding of Mastodon up to 2006 before the release of Blood Mountain, gets incorporated with the new things, gets thrown into the mix with the new ideas, and you kind of get to see how all that works out. And for me as a fan of Mastodon from Remission, Leviathan, and now we're talking about Blood Mountain today, I think these new things work very well with Mastodon because they've kind of tried this stuff before, but not to this level of what they're trying to bring across now on Blood Mountain, because the majority of the new things that they're trying is more melody, more melodic things being thrown into the mix of the progressive, aggressive, sludge metal that they've been doing on the first two releases. They've done some melody here and there, but the majority of the new things that we get on Blood Mountain is very melodic stuff. New melodies, vocal melodies, guitar melodies, drum melodies, bass melodies. All of that gets thrown into this new mix, and I think that the band was trying to see what they can do and see how they can really build upon these kind of, ideas they've already placed down and already have set in stone from the first two releases that they've really made their fans understand. They're trying to build upon what they've already set down, set in stone, as how the writing process is going to go. Some songs on this album, the writing process, how the songs put together, the transitions, all sound similar to the past releases, but other songs, even, I would say even more than half, definitely they try to incorporate some new things to really throw into the mix to kind of throw the listener off, because the first time I heard this album a few years ago in its entirety, I was kind of thrown off by some of the transitions and some of the things they were trying to do. And even now, to when I'm doing the discography, hearing it again a few years later in its entirety, I'm still kind of blown away. I'm still kind of like rediscovering this album in a way, because for a long time I was listening to a bunch of different bands. I wasn't really thinking about Mastodon, and then when I said I'm going to do the discography, I kind of rediscovered their albums. I kind of rediscovered what made me like / love this band in the first place. And I'm going to go off and say right now, these are my personal highlights from this album, and I will definitely talk about a few of them and why that is. The Wolf is Loose, the opening track, the drumming parts, the opening drumming part. There's a melody riff that goes on in there, and the bass follows along as well. I love that part. It really just blows me away each time. Just like, it sounds very simplistic, this melody, but definitely I keep repeating that section over and over and over. Crystal Skull, of course, I really enjoyed the vocal melodies that are going on throughout that track. I really enjoy the lyrical content that is being, thrown at you, and I really just enjoy how that song was put together. Sleeping Giant, I think, is my personal favorite track on this album. If it's not my personal favorite, it's definitely tied with a few other songs that I mentioned, but Sleeping Giant, track number 3, man, I love the opening clean guitar tone. I love that riff. I love how this song just really, it kind of changes the formula up a little bit from The Wolf is Loose and Crystal Skull. Number 3, it really switches up kind of a, how the writing of the songs are going to go, how it's going to progress throughout the track. Definitely a good switch up, I think. Bladecatcher, which is an instrumental. I really enjoyed that track. I love when, especially if there's songs that are very long from Mastodon and they have like long sections of no vocals and they do instrumental and they kind of go freeform and do what they want. That's why I like the fact that they have instrumentals and they have long sections of no vocals so they can kind of do their own thing and kind of do what they want and not have to really focus on, okay, we got to incorporate vocals somehow. So I like the fact that they have an instrumental on this album. Colony of Birchmen, a personal track that I discovered a long time ago, way before I actually heard the full album in its entirety, but definitely a track that's worth noted to listen to. This Mortal Soul, I remember hearing this song a few years ago and I wasn't really digging it at the time, and now the fact that I've come to know a ton of different bands and all these things, and basically a few years of, you know, just not really listening to this full album, listening to just the certain tracks, definitely love the song now. It's definitely tied with the track Sleeping Giant for personal favorite song. And Siberian Divide, amazing track. And track number 12, I hope I'm saying this correctly, Pendulous Skin, is a 22-minute track, but technically it's 5 minutes of the actual song, and then it's 15 minutes of silence, and then we get a secret message from Josh, aka the vocalist of Queens of the Stone Age, doing a fan letter, and it was pretty funny to listen to. But Pendulous Skin, I hope I'm saying that correct once again, is definitely a track that I really enjoy. I love the opening guitar part. I really enjoy the melodic of that track. That's a very melodic and very melody-driven track that I really just come to love, and I love to repeat it and just listen to it over and over and over. I love how the song actually ends before the 15-minute of silence, where that chord, that whoever plays that chord, that guitar chord that's played at the end, definitely a really awesome chord to kind of end this song, and then 15 minutes of silence. So anyways, let's talk about the sound of the band, and we'll talk about some of the production qualities and the band members and what they basically brought to this album, and then we'll be done with this review. So anyways, let's start off with Troy on bass and vocals. Let's talk about vocals first. So we're going to include Troy on vocals, Brent, Bill, and Brann. All of them did backup vocals or vocals in general. The vocals on this album are very similar to Remission and very similar to Leviathan. The one big key difference that I was mentioning before, talking about basically the big idea of this album, is there's more melody throughout this album vocal-wise, and all the guys did some different type of melodies, did some new things with their voice. There's also other parts where they kind of do the same thing they were doing before, but there are some more melody-driven moments. There are some more softer kind of singing / vocals. I really enjoyed the lyrical content on this album. I think the one big thing I really noticed is that I enjoy the lyrical content on this album more than I enjoyed it on Leviathan, even though I consider Leviathan to be my personal favorite album from this band. Now, Blood Mountain is a really close second as of right now, definitely rediscovering most of the music on this album again after a few years off. But the lyrical content really blew me away, because at the first time I heard this album, I didn't look up the lyrical content. I kind of just listened to the album and I fell in love with it. But now hearing the lyrical content and actually following along and actually hearing all these interesting things I really didn't catch the first time around a few years back, definitely an eye-opener. Definitely something that I wish I would have did years ago when I first started to look up the lyrical content, look up the lyricals, look up the lyrics, look it up. I didn't, but I'm glad I did this time. So anyways, vocals, amazing job. All the guys did great. Very good stuff there vocal-wise and lyric-wise as well. Let's go to guitars, Brent and Bill. The guitars on this album, production-wise, sound more clean, crisp, they're to the point, and that could scare some people right there if you've not really looked into this album too much, because they're sludge metal / progressive metal. The sludge metal aspect really calls for more gritty and aggressive guitars. The tone they picked is very aggressive, and it really does fit with the music that they're putting on this album, which is sludge, progressive metal, and melody stuff and melodic stuff here and there, really thrown into all the mix. But I think that just because the production is definitely a huge step up from Leviathan, doesn't mean that the sludge metal is being affected by it. Obviously, some people might have a different opinion, and that's okay. But for me, as a fan of Mastodon, and really hearing the production increase from Leviathan 2 years later to now Blood Mountain, you definitely get to see how more crisp and clean the guitars sound. The acoustic guitars, clean guitar, the actual, turned up, the actual aggressive guitar tone, the, what is it called, turning up the max, whatever, the gain, whatever. But definitely, definitely more crisp and more clean. But that, I don't think that it doesn't really affect the actual music itself. I don't think it does. I think it actually helps them kind of write in different ways and kind of do new things. That's what we really notice on this album. Now, guitar playing wise, let's actually get the guitar playing. The riffs on this album are very impressive. I enjoyed the acoustic parts. I enjoyed the clean guitars. I enjoyed the actual heavy aggressive guitars. I just enjoyed all the little things they did. I enjoyed the riffs, the melodies, the solo work, all of that, because I think that Mastodon is really good at writing very aggressive and very peaceful type riffs, or very simplistic riffs, and aggressive and technical. All these different types of riffs. Mastodon is very good at writing all these different types of riffs, and they know how to put songs together. So props to the guitar guys, props to Brent and Bill, very good work there. Troy on bass. The bass can be heard throughout this whole entire album, and that's another thing I like about Mastodon. The bass can be heard. A lot of bands today in metal, even if it was back in the early 2000s or whenever, throughout time, the bass guitar is known for not being heard that much unless it's a specific, that's the word, band really wants to showcase the bass player, and if they don't, then they're not going to have the bass turned up. It's just going to be played right behind the guitars, and you can barely hear it. You got to really listen. But what I like about Mastodon is that they allow Troy, aka the bass player, to be heard throughout this whole entire album, whether he's playing right along with the guitars or doing something a little bit different. You can hear the bass. If you listen, it's clear as day, and you can hear it throughout the whole entire album. So props again to Mastodon for me to hear the freaking bass, because that's what I want to hear. I love the guitars and drums and vocals, but the bass has got to be heard, or I have a gripe about it. I do. It doesn't have to be blasting, overpowering vocals, guitars, and drums, but if it's not there at some point, if I can't hear it, I have an issue with it. So, like I said, props to Mastodon for once again allowing me to hear the bass guitar. Brann on drums. Like I said, talking about The Wolf is Loose, the opening track, which has drums being played, a little drum solo, a start-off point. Brann, throughout this whole entire album, is doing what he loves to do on the first two releases, like Remission, Leviathan. It's no different here. The only thing that I can really notice that's really different about his playing on this album is kind of when the more simplistic stuff's coming, the more of the melody type stuff. Pendulous Skin, which is the closer of the album, definitely a very slower track. Sleeping Giant, the opening of that third track, is more melodic and really pulled back and not too aggressive and crazy. It's slow paced. The Brann really does take that into consideration. He does slow down, but he's still coming up with some drum parts, throwing it in there and kind of going, oh, I didn't expect that. This is a really slow section. There goes a drum solo. Boom! All over. And then he goes back to being simplistic and simple. But he is taking into consideration how to slow down on those slower parts. But when it gets to the aggressive parts and the crazy parts and technical parts and going insane, Brann is at the front. He is going insane and doing what he loves to do, which is basically come up with the most ridiculous and out there and very crazy drum fills and drum solos that he can come up with that doesn't throw off the rest of the band. So props to him. The band sounds great. The production quality for the vocals, bass, guitars, and drums are basically significantly higher than Leviathan. The 2 years, 2004, 2006. Definitely production quality has stepped up. So overall, this is an amazing release from Mastodon. This is an album that I think, if you've not heard this album, if you've not heard anything, please check out this album. I don't care what song you look up. Just look up one song and just see what you think about this album. It's definitely a huge success in my book from this band. If I would give a rating, and I will give a rating, this album definitely deserves a 9.75 out of 10, a 9.5 out of 10. One of those two, definitely an album that I will cherish and love for a very long time. So that's a review, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Comment down below and let me know what's your favorite track on this album, if you have one. And if not, if you have more than one, name them in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked the video, like the video. And if you like me and you want to see more, click my name or subscribe to see more. Thank you guys for watching. See ya.